It was a beautiful lady who liked to lie on the coast of a lake. This lake was really big, and it took up most of the space in this valley that she loved. And every day she would come down here to sit on the shores and just watch the sunset over the mountains that surrounded this lake. Because this lake was so big, there were actually quite a few mountains around it. So she'd often come down here just to watch the sunset behind these mountains. And she loved watching the sunset because the colors that would appear in the sky were just magical. Sometimes the sky would be filled with orange, then purple, then yellow, green, blue, and sometimes even red. It was amazing. But no matter what color the sky was, or rather the clouds were, because the sky was always blue, she liked them all. She enjoyed coming down here to be by herself and with her 2 dogs, and listen to the tide waves as they crashed into the shore. She also loved coming down here because she could see some wildlife. Sometimes she would see fish jumping out of the water or birds flying overhead. Occasionally she'd even spot some deer drinking water from the lake. It was nice to be able to get away from people and just enjoy nature. And since this was her favorite place to go to, she would bring her 2 dogs with her whenever she came down here. These 2 dogs would run around on the shores looking for sticks to fetch, and occasionally they would jump into the lake and swim around. She would just sit there watching them play, and she would smile every time they brought her a stick. One day she was sitting on the shore as usual, and the sun was setting behind one of the mountains. The sky was filled with different colors, and the tide waves were crashing into the shore. And as she sat there listening to the tide waves, she heard something else. A dimly lit coast path, where shadows dance between the trees as the sound of footsteps echoes. A serene moment where a lady is seeing a deer gracefully. Then the lady watched the deer walk away, and then she turned her attention back to the lake. She loved this lake area, and she had no plans of ever leaving from here. As the sun began to set, the sky became darker, and the temperature began to drop. Lady pulled her sweater tighter around her body and snuggled closer to her dogs. The wind began to pick up, and the tide waves started crashing harder against the shore. Lady could feel the spray of the waves on her face, and she could hear the wind howling through the trees. She liked it when the weather got rough. It was nice to be able to feel the power of nature all around her. Suddenly, she heard a loud crack. She turned her head and saw that one of the trees had fallen into the lake. She watched as the tree floated away and disappeared from view. After half an hour, the storm stopped, and one of her dogs barked and ran towards the water. One of his dogs had jumped into the water and was trying to catch the fish, but it didn't seem to be working. Lady didn't hesitate any longer. She called her other dog, and the 2 of them started running towards the water. When she got to the water's edge, she and her dog together were playing in the water and chased the fish. This is the most beautiful place she has ever seen. After sunset, she returned home and begins preparing a flavor dinner. She steps into her kitchen, the quiet hum of the house the only sound. Her fingers move instinctively, gathering ingredients from the counter. The first dish she tackles is spaghetti puttanesca tender pasta, wrapped in a rich, briny sauce. The anchovies dissolve in the olive oil, adding a depth of umami that always surprises her. A touch of garlic, olives, and capers. It's a simple meal, yet so full of flavor.